Yep.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Hell yeah. What up, fam?
Not much, just fucking, farming this mountain World of Warcraft while I wait.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Pineapples with Pam. We are your hosts, Pat.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Mike, and we are about to get prego.
Giving birth to movie reviews.
That's it.
Today's movie is Juno. It was our roulette pick from last week. I added it to the list. The synopsis is basically about a 16-year-old couple that gets pregnant, and it's kind of just like a slice of life. It's just them dealing with really more the main character, Juno, her dealing with the kind of fallout from that. It's pretty straightforward. I think the movie's pretty straightforward in that regard in terms of the plot. It's really just following her through the pregnancy and seeing the kind of challenges and ups and downs while she tries to determine what she's going to do with the baby afterwards, and she decides she wants to put it up for adoption. And yeah, that's it. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's
in that
pretty
regard.
straightforward. Yeah.
Mike, why don't you give us some trivia this week?
Yeah, well, yeah, I had a couple fun facts that I thought were pretty just like interesting. There wasn't really, sometimes I feel like some of these movies there isn't too much, but a couple that I thought were interesting, both surrounding the ultrasound scene.
Okay.
Okay.
So the ultrasound scene was actually based on real events where, Cody, who is, like the Diablo Cody, right? Who is the I believe the writer or director, right?
Okay.
Their friend had a pretty much the exact exchange that took place in that ultrasound scene of how the mom shoots down the ultrasound technician.
Oh.
And that was written into the script.
Nice.
Kind of love that.
Yeah, so I always so talk about slice of life. This is definitely like a real slice of life type vibe. But then the other ultrasound scene, fun fact, was that the footage for the baby was a crew member's wife.
Oh shit.
Okay.
And the baby was credited as ultrasound baby. So like the son Matthew Sanders in the movie is credited as ultrasound baby.
That's kind of awesome.
That's funny.
Yeah. So those are just a couple little fun facts that I thought were interesting. You know what I mean?
So light on the trivia this week, but that's okay. I think that there's kind of a lot to talk about with this movie anyway. So
yes, we have a content warning for the birthing scene was pretty traumatic. I myself had to skip over it, but I will say that they make it very obvious when it's about to happen, so it's easy to point out, so you can skip it. As far as Elliot Page is concerned, dead names stay dead. Elliot Page is Elliot Page.
That's right.
That's right.
Can I just say that this movie, I was really, throughout the whole entire movie, I kept expecting things to happen in a particular fashion, and it seemed like they were going to lead that way, and then they totally did not. It did not resolve in the way that I expected at all.
Was this a first time watch for you?
Yes.
It was.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, me too. This was definitely a reaction video for me.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I love that. That actually makes this like way more fun for me. Like, I'm really interested to hear what you guys thought. I've seen this movie like 100 times.
Well, I remember to what Andrea was saying, I actually felt the opposite. I felt like I even remember you were saying, Pat, before we were seeing that, like, you won't see it. Actually, I think even Andrea mentioned it in the chat where she was just like, oh, you probably won't see where. I actually predicted pretty heavily where things were going.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
that's not what I was expecting.
I don't know if I could tell just by the way. I mean, I actually would probably give it credit to the actors who played their roles so well. Because I also know Jason Bateman's character types very well.
Yeah.
And when he showed up, I was like, okay, you're going to be either a total herb or a sleazeball.
Yeah. Well, I will say I knew that they were going to be getting divorced, but I was expecting Juno to fall for him. I was expecting there to be some gross kind of
No.
like triangle going on there, and I was cringing the whole time,
Yeah.
expecting that to happen. And then when I realized that no, she just really wanted like not necessarily a father figure, because her father was a good role model, but she
Yes.
was looking for that kind of like, just that comfort from an older parental type,
Right.
and,
Yep.
not trying to see any. And I was like, oh, that's
Yeah. So what I thought was going to happen initially was that they were going to give off the pretentious bougie vibe, right?
yeah,
And then there was going to be a connective class nature where, like, the two classes collide and it's like working class and bougie class and like, oh, look, I do play guitar, right? Kind of
yeah,
shit.
yeah,
And,
that's
and I thought that it was going to be more of a togetherness there initially. But once certain things started to happen with when I started to see the red flags from Jason Bateman's character with the whole creating a CD that she
Uh-huh.
called cute,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's when I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, okay, so he's a creep in that regard.
yeah.
And here's the thing: there are actually several things I identify with Jason Bateman's character,
Okay.
as the musician, as the working musician in his own regard, right?
Yeah,
Um, that was married. So like there's certainly a connective thread there that I was able to associate with, but at the same time, it was not it was not a what's the word, justification or
Right. No, of
a
course.
redeeming quality in his actions in that movie. Although I actually did understand his perspective of that change of life or the expectation of one's marriage on your career and that kind of aspect. So I thought that there was at least some relatable aspects to his character. I definitely saw the I'm going to be trying to do something with Juno vibe, right? And what I had a feeling like as I was going through, I'm like, okay, so he clearly doesn't want kids, and then she's probably going to end up still giving it to Vanessa, or she's going to raise her herself and learn to raise her herself. And I was right on the first one.
yeah.
Right.
I didn't expect her to give it to Vanessa. I didn't expect that part either.
I love the way she gave it to her, though. The
Yeah,
note,
yeah,
Yes.
the
yeah.
note was
I
awesome. Like I loved the way that they did. Like, and that's the thing is, I feel like for something that even I was able to predict, the way they told it was very good.
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it,
I
it,
say I so you kind of identified. I'm sorry if I'm if me and Pash are taking up so much time, Pash.
No, no, no. This is good. This I have seen this movie so many times. I have a lot to say, but I
Uh,
want to hear. This is like great.
yeah. So for me, so Pash related to the Jason Bateman character, I kind of identified for a very obvious reasons with Jennifer Garner's character, somebody who's like experienced infertility and all that. But I despised how unlikable they made her and how they made her
Yeah.
so
mm,
like the histrionic woman who has a fucking biological clock that's ticking, and hurry up, let's go get me pregnant. Like there are so many, it is so much more nuanced to that when you are dealing with infertility and having miscarriages and like yeah, I really hated how the treatment of her character. They
mm.
could have done her differently. They didn't have to make her so very unlikable. They
So
She could have still divorced him, and they could have still divorced without her being such an unlikable character.
that's actually where I'll jump in for at first. I genuinely find it interesting that you found her unlikable. I found I had a lot of empathy for her, and like this is coming from somebody who like doesn't want kids, doesn't think we need any more kids. Like, and I found myself having a lot of empathy for her, and feeling like, damn, this woman, she's struggling really hard for this, and like she feels really really bad, like the scene when they're at the mall and she's like really upset that like the baby's not kicking for her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
really, really liked that moment. I
Y-
thought that was very beautiful.
yeah, it's like a very human
Oh,
scene, and I like
I
I,
think I think maybe in like the they did say, like, she becomes likable at the end, I think, like by the time she has the kid. But in the beginning, during that like interview process, to me she just came across as this like highly controlling, very.
Well, but that is who she is. She had to kind of, all right, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
That's,
yes, because I do think that's who she is, but that's part of what makes her character so. I almost feel like there's another R word that Pat was trying to use because I know what he's thinking is like, almost kind of, you're like, oh, I
Believable.
feel, yeah, like I feel for you. Um, like obviously you have a certain lifestyle that you were able to achieve,
mhm,
right?
yeah,
While not able to achieve another one. And that almost, I mean, because that character archetype, the very controlling, neurotic one,
yeah.
is going to have to learn to be not controlling as a mother, right? And I feel like that whole like narrative gets played through as she becomes more open about the control and connecting with other people, kind of thing, right?
I can see that. I just, for me, that's such like an over stereotyped view of women in movies.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
would have to agree. I would have
really,
to agree.
I felt like wasn't needed necessarily. Like
Sure.
they went in so many other directions with other characters, and then they just like, you know what I mean, kept that same stereotype for.
Well, it's so funny that you say that because I was actually literally just about to say, I'm like, considering how real and slice of life the protagonist story is. And not even just the protagonist, but even the supporting characters, right? It is very unconventional in as a movie. And I think that they hit a lot of uncommon beats in a great way. And the fact that we have one character or two like that might have a little bit of a stereotypical vibe. Yes, maybe that is there to a degree, but I don't think it takes away from the narrative of what Juno also goes through. Juno's ending is a very unique ending.
It
Oh
is, yes.
yes, agreed,
It,
agreed. That,
they could have treated it so much differently than they did.
So
But
differently.
but you know what, Andrea, like I'm actually like really kind of hearing what you're saying, kind of specifically after you said what you just said, Mike. Like they did go out of their way to write like really unique, really kind of like believable, in-depth characters, and Jennifer Garner's does definitely feel like the laziest writing.
Yes.
yeah, that's
Like
Yeah.
it feels like it feels like they kind of just like slapped a band-aid over a character and were like, all right, you're just this kind of stereotype now
right.
that you say it like that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
hear that,
yeah.
actually.
I mean, it's just it's me nitpicking at what was actually a very surprisingly good movie to me. Even though I had to
Yeah.
skip over that big part with the birth and stuff, it didn't, for me, did not affect the movie as a whole. Also, can I say that like, you know how we take notes on like our favorite things, and my notes for favorite shot, I only have one note. Any shot on Page, his face is beautifully emotive and heartbreaking.
I think that like I'm trying to think of like another actor that I could compare it to. You can like really believe and like read the emotions. That's one of my notes, was that I think that like putting Elliot Page with Michael Cera, it was like perfect.
Yeah,
They
It
like
really
played
was.
off each other so well,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
their
so
dynamic was
brutally
very
awkward
believable.
together.
Yes.
Yeah.
uh,
And
oh.
I do love the song that the two of them have together that feels very perfect for each other, right?
Is that the Barry
Um,
Lewis Pulsar movie? That's the from the beginning. I
The
mean,
what?
the Barry Lewis Pulsar song from the very beginning.
Oh, yes, the one that they're singing together at the end.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I fucking know that song from my childhood. That whole album
Mm.
is the soundtrack to my childhood. I
Yo, word.
Yeah, I sat up as soon as that song started playing in the beginning, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
I thought it was. Do you know who Garfunkel and Oates are?
Yeah,
No.
kind of.
I thought it was them.
Oh, you thought it was them. You thought that
Yeah.
the
Oh,
song.
okay. Oh no,
Gotcha.
that
Um,
that's very.
yeah, I mean, yeah, the soundtrack was very good. Obviously, like songs like that are, I forget the word, but like non-original tracks, right, kind of thing. Like a lot of it is. I don't think there's a lot of original music in that movie at all, right? It is mostly all credited music, and I think that it was a very well selected. The whole movie seemed to pass through very smoothly for me. I enjoyed every bit of it, and like I loved. Why can't I ever remember his name? The father.
J.K. Simmons.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love him so much
Me
every
too.
time.
He's one of my
Every
favorite
time.
actors. Yeah, he's
Doesn't
great.
matter what movie.
Yeah.
He could be a bad guy, a good guy, or whatever. I fucking love J.K. Simmons. Okay.
Oh my god, the part between him and Elliot when she first like confesses her pregnancy,
Yes.
Oh.
and he's like, oh fuck, what? I thought you were the kind of girl who knew when to say when.
And
Oh, what kind of girl I am.
yeah.
That to me was so reflective of Elliot as a trans person, and
Mm,
can like see a direct correlation between
mm.
and his journey just in that one line. There was so many points in this movie that I was screaming over that, and I was delighted to see it. But even though it was like, yeah, it's just, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, word.
That
Yeah.
that that whole scene I feel like was very kind of powerful.
Yeah,
Oh,
Because
yeah.
yeah, it's on levels.
she's freaking out,
Yeah,
right? And they start the movie off. She tells you about her father is this badass like army vet, whatever, and you're expecting him to freak out in that scene, and he handles it with so much more calmness than you're built to believe is going to be the reaction. If that makes sense, like I don't know.
yeah. No, that's what we were saying about how they take like a different perspective of so many of the roles, and he is a perfect example of that. That he did not react at all how I thought he was going to react.
It's even kind of a little bit unconventional that he is even in that role as like the single dad who's like doing the thing, and she kind of describes her mom as being like kind of abandoned them. Usually it's like the other way around in
Yeah,
movies. Thought that
Yeah,
that
I
was like
actually didn't really think much about that initially. It wasn't until later on. I mean, I personally relate a lot to the family because I have a very unconventional family, and I think that, especially just to note on in solidarity with how powerful that scene was, right? When they find out that when Elliot tells them that she that he's pregnant, and when it comes down to the way that that reaction takes place is a very nuanced, if you know this kind of family dynamic, it's a very nuanced form of love
yeah,
that is being expressed here, because it's the kind of love that happens very rarely in families where, how do I put this? It's a very rare kind of love where even when you don't agree, and even like fundamentally, right? Shit hits the fan, and or big moments happen, right? Depending on how you view a pregnancy happening, you can view it as shit hitting the fan or a miracle, depending on your viewpoint, right? But the way that it is handled based off of the viewpoints of that family dynamic, which is one that is complex, you see a very nuanced family love that is rare to find but does exist, and I am personally honored to have, but also after being through similar situations, right, where the parents are separated but there's then someone new in the mix, blah, blah, you know what I mean, and
mhm.
what that influence is like from that other person, but then you also have the a parent that you both like love and respect but also kind of like disagree with, you know what I mean,
Sure.
and it's like, you're navigating a very complex river of that kind of love, and I think that the movie taps into that very well in that scene, because he both showed J.K. Simmons' character both shows the disapproving nature of his character's beliefs
hmm
Hmm.
with the fatherly, I will do whatever I need to do for my daughter and that child.
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, and there's a very complex love there that is awesomely portrayed by
Hmm.
J.K.
yeah,
Simmons.
yeah, yeah,
It's very delicate is how I think of that scene, because he recognizes that Elliot's in the worst possible state of mind they could be in, and getting that news, J.K. Simmons could have easily just like exploded and wigged out and didn't.
Yeah.
It's really like it
Yes.
is very delicate is how I think of it. That scene also has one of my favorite lines in like movie, and I can't even explain to you why. Like after Juno goes upstairs, he's like, "Next time I see that Paulie Bleecker kid, I'm gonna punch him in the wiener."
Anything but this. And I'm gonna punch that Bleecker kid in the wiener next time I see him.
Mac, come on. You know it wasn't his idea.
Oh, I love it.
I think that is so
There's
funny.
Good dialogue in this movie. It is like I fucking took so many dialogue notes. Oh my god.
Yes.
Yeah, just like the way that, especially for J.K. Simmons' character, the way he was just like, how he was like, I was hoping a DUI or drugs or something, but
Yeah.
definitely not this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
This is the worst option. Like, I just love that perspective that he has. He's like, I wish it was drugs or DWIs. It could have been anything.
Right.
Like,
Oh my god. Fucking
yeah, very, very nuanced character, and of course a great, it nails the message at the end with who you find companionship with.
yeah. It's good.
The cinematography for this movie, I think, is like kind of like indicative of that early 2000s looking indie movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a timepiece there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do love it. I love that like the whole movie it's all like very warm tones. It's all like very like warm color palette throughout the whole movie. And it kind of gives it this like melancholy feel. The visual aspect of the movie suits the thematic tones of the movie. And I really appreciate that kind of thought being put into a movie like that.
The color palette is kind of fast foodish.
Interesting and true. What the fuck?
Which is kind of perfect for when you want to exhibit melancholy, I guess.
That is like really weird. Now that you said that, like all I can think about is McDonald's.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
that's so weird. Yeah, no, but it does, and you're right. And I actually would like to know what that movie was shot on, because like there's like a lot of the whole movie is like kind of a little bit grainy, and it's like looks so good. And I'm gonna see if I can look that up right now.
Oh, so okay. Thank goodness. Okay, because I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I haven't gotten to fully test my new TV, and I thought that the graininess was something with my TV.
No, that's just the movie. I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh, yo, word. Oh, thank God. Yo, let's go. Because I was about to be super pissed about my TV purchase. I was going to continue my testing today, but I'm glad you said that, because now I can at least add that level of additional clarity.
Oh, so this was shot on the Panavision Panaflex Millennium XL camera, which
Okay.
was used to film Ocean's 11.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
The Dark Knight. Okay, so this was shot on, I don't know if it's film. Unbreakable, Bad Boys 2. Okay, so that's really cool.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
also going to depend on like the manufacturer of the film and stuff. Like Kodak in still photography, I don't know what kind of substrates they use in moving video, but in still film, Kodak has like a very warm emulsion base, and Fuji has a very cold emulsion base. So the colors that you get out are gonna be different. And then also, of course, like the post production as well, they can always influence
color grade, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's good to know.
I mean, the palette was good. You know what I mean? Like, it was very tasteful to it. I understand what we were getting at. You know what I mean? All nerdy tech aside, which I was enjoying.
Can I talk about one more piece of dialogue that I loved? And
talk about all of the dialogue that you love.
For me, was like another like indicator of like Elliot's trans journey later on, when Juno screams out, "What does sexually active even mean? Activate someday, or is this a permanent state of being?" I thought that was pretty great. Like the whole permanent state of being like made me wonder like where his mindset was at this time. Like we're like, was he still figuring stuff out? Like everybody like discovers things at different stages.
Yeah.
And I would love to know more about like what was in his mind. And I would also love to know like what kind of lines were improv.
I actually have a note about something that I'm pretty certain was ad-libbed in by Elliot, actually.
Oh, yes.
At the end of the very first meeting that they have with Mark and Vanessa, Juno's putting her coat on, and J.K. Simmons is like standing behind her, and Juno's like, oh, believe me, if I could give you the baby right now, I would, but I think maybe I should leave it in the oven and let it cook for a little longer. And the way that J.K. Simmons, like, if you watch I rewound it like 3 times. Like, if you watch the way he reacts to Juno saying that, like, it looks so genuine. He looks like he was so caught off guard by that line, and I'm like convinced that was either he really is just that good of an actor, which
Yeah.
is possible, or Elliot Page just completely threw that in there and rocked the boat for everybody on that scene, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and
Word.
another good JK line. Fucking the right. Still gonna think the sun shines out your ass.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Again, very, very delicate, that scene at the end when he's telling her all that.
Oh yeah, I thought that was very, very nicely handled. Like, didn't set Juno up for any ridiculous expectations, but didn't also like shit on everything.
Yeah. And speaking of, okay, so the scene where Juno confronts Paulie for going to prom with that other girl,
Yeah.
that scene is so brutal to me. Every time I watch the movie, I like brace myself for that. It's just so, again, oh my god, the acting genuinely, the acting and the writing is so good, because like they do such a good job of like showing these like teenagers who are both like really hurt and don't know how to deal with it, kind of just like lashing out at each other. And it's like, I don't know, something about that scene just like really like hits me deep, and I'm just like, oh, this sucks for everybody. Like, everybody's in pain here and nobody's dealing with it in a way that's
Seemed very much like a teenage, I'm mad at you and everybody else fights this way, and this is like, I'm supposed to say these things to you now. But like,
yes.
it didn't genuinely really enjoy the things that they were saying to one another.
Also, I know you guys said that you loved the soundtrack, but I hated it.
That's hilarious.
No, I didn't hate it. I'm just kidding a little bit. Well, I guess never mind. I guess it's just, it all sounds very melancholy in the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's music that fits the piece.
No,
That's
yeah,
also
it does.
credited music. You know what I mean? It's, you know.
One thing I did notice this time through that I hadn't picked up before is that usually in a movie like this, there would be like some sort of conflict between Juno and Leah, her best friend, and there wasn't. And I'm like glad that there wasn't, because
Yeah.
that's like a very traditional thing in this type of like indie movie that is like slice of life, because you know her life is difficult, things are kind of like spinning out of her control, so she'd be like in conflict with more people, but she wasn't. And I think that speaks to how well the pacing of the movie is. I think the whole movie is like very buttoned up. It doesn't waste time on anything. Like, every scene kind of has a purpose to like help move the plot forward. There's no filler. For lack of a better word, it's like a very efficient movie, I think.
Sure. I would absolutely agree. It definitely moves through very smoothly, you know?
Yeah.
I would agree, but I would also say that for me is where the movie kind of drops the ball a bit, because it is so efficient. It doesn't, like, I love the scenes and how the characters interact with each other, but we know zero background on all of these characters, really. We have not seen or heard any kind of explanations. Like, we know that she was in a band, but we never got to see her in a band. And I guess we're supposed to assume that she's a delinquent kid just because she decided to have sex, but we don't see her doing any other delinquent stuff.
That's a good point.
And the same thing for the married couple. We don't see anything about their background, really, of like nothing fleshed out about all of the characters. They only have a certain amount of dimensionality.
Yeah, and I think they try to give you some of that stuff through like exposition.
Just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I guess that's fair. I felt it was fine, except for like because I kind of like to pass point through the way that they acted. Like, you could feel the juvenile nature of Elliot Page's character in how they were acting in it. You know what I mean?
But it was all really only words. There was no
Correct.
real
Correct.
there was no action there. Like,
right.
You didn't see them out drinking with other friends and, smoking a joint. Like, it's just all like sassy mouth work. There's no real action to back it up.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair point. If there had been like a little bit more, like even if it was just like a flashback or something,
Yeah, just
like
yeah. Or even some, like, if instead of just having cartoons in the opening title credits and whatever, we
yeah,
would have seen some of those, like maybe just little clips of those scenes or something. And I think that's why I had that sense of not understanding where things were going throughout the movie, is because I had so little exposition on who these people were and what their motivations were.
sure, yeah, yeah. I
Like
I, I
like
agree.
really still don't understand her relationship with Michael Cera. Like, we didn't get to see any of that really. They just
Yeah,
it a couple of times. And there's one tiny little like blurb of a flashback, but it's not like an entire scene.
yeah. You only see like quick images, really. And there's no real
Yeah.
context for how they arrived at that point.
Yeah. So, I mean, perhaps that was intentional on the filmmaker's part. He wanted to leave us guessing and not quite understanding. But for me, I think I would have preferred more of that, a little bit
Mhm.
of understanding about their external motivations.
Do you feel like any of the characters kind of had more depth than that, or do you feel like it was kind of across the board?
Juno had the most, but still not quite enough for me to, like, really understand her as a character.
Sure.
But she, obviously, as the main character of the movie, had a bit more than everybody else.
Do we want to move on to our pineapple scale?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to touch on, but I kind of, hit all my major points. I'm ready for my pineapples.
Okay.
I'm ready for my pineapples as well.
I'm gonna give it, as much as I love this movie, I'm gonna give it like a 7 out of 10 pineapples, because there are a couple of things that I feel like I didn't love as much as I did the first 30 times that I watched this 15 years ago, whenever it came out. Annoyingly, I think some of the soundtrack stuff really made me not feel great. Most of the other reasons are kind of just like kind of little nitpicky things, but I solid 7 out of 10 pineapple.
Solid. It's above average.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, I give it also a 7. Good film, great dialogue, and heartfelt if flat characters. But for me, like, my kind of main thing was the whole pregnancy theme. Kept me hyper vigilant, waiting for the birth scene. So that's probably why I don't like it as much as, like, most other people are gonna like it, because that's,
Sure.
it's just the thing, that bothers me. So it's not likely to be a rewatch for me. But I felt that the performances obviously were exceptional, and good directing, just kind of flat characters.
Solid 7 out of 10 pineapples.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm giving it I actually am surprised I'd be giving it a higher review. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was really good
Oh,
overall for the kind
Wow.
of movie that it
wow.
was.
Surprised.
Wow, excellent. Excellent.
You heard it
Yeah.
here, folks. 20 out of 10 pineapples from Mike.
Yes.
And,
Uh,
another
No.
flawless. Um, so, so next week is the first week of the month, which means that we are going to begin a new theme for next month. We decided on retro action as the theme
Mhm.
for the month, and so for my pick for the first pick of the month, we're gonna do the smash action Sylvester Stallone movie from 1993, Demolition Man, starring
oh, damn it.
starring Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes.
Let's go.
Why do you always make me choose reactionary movies?
Yo, let's go.
This movie is
I am
so
totally
fucking
okay with
good.
everything I just heard. All
Dude.
right, let's go. All about it.
Don't
So,
make Pick Remo Williams as a fucking reactionary movie.
what movie?
Remo Williams.
Reno Williams.
Remo, Remo.
I have never even heard of that. The adventure begins.
Yeah.
This looks awesome. The cover for this movie is insane. I'm
Yeah.
all about it. Oh shit.
We
So
shall see. We shall see. I'm gonna have to think of something more.
I gotta find where we can watch the movie. So yeah, Everybody, thanks for
man. Jesus Christ.
yeah, Death
The
Wish.
fuck.
We're gonna kill each other by bad movie.
For real.
Cool. Month 2 is in the bag. If we have any people that have been listening with us this entire time, thank you for coming back each week. I think that's it. Signing off. We are your hosts, Pat.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Mike. And we'll see you next week for another pineapple. A little horrible Sylvester Stallone impression for you. There you go. Sign off.